Shine bright like a diamond.
Hey, everybody. I'm super excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Grace Perry. I'm a writer, and my first book, The 2000s Made Me Gay, which is up like this, Essays on Pop Culture, comes out on June 1st. So it comes out next Tuesday. It's half cultural criticism, half memoir. It sort of blends the two genres to explore how entertainment, as frivolous as it can seem, actually makes a real impact on the way we think about our lives and the way that we live our lives, especially when we're young, when we're teenagers, when we're super spongy. Now, I don't know how many of you are keeping up with teen pop culture today. It's really okay if you're not. But it's fair to say that at large, media for teenagers is way, way gayer than it was when I was a kid in the 2000s. In my book, I identify Glee as the sort of kickoff for this gay pop culture boom of the 2010s. It premiered in 2009, made like $1 bazillion, and proved to Hollywood that there was a market for LGBT stories. Now there are movies and TV like Generation, Love, Simon, Euphoria, Sex Education, just to name a few, that all center really well-rounded queer characters. This is definitely a good thing. Representation matters, and queer kids now have so many different potential role models to look to in, characters and celebrities if, they don't have anyone in their real immediate lives. But when I came of age in the aughts, it was a different situation. There were virtually no queer characters in our entertainment, and those that did exist weren't exactly three-dimensional. And yet, even without pop culture role models to look to, the 2000s produced the most openly gay people of any generation to that point, only to be outnumbered by Gen Z. What I set out to do with the 2000s Made Me Gay was explore what it was like to come of age in this presumably final decade before this big gay entertainment boom. A more accurate title for the book would have probably been The 2000s Are to Blame for the Specific Kind of Gay Person I Am Today, but I would have been completely exhausted by the end of writing that sentence and probably wouldn't have even written the rest of the book. So here we are with The 2000s Made Me Gay. Today, I'm going to give you a little sneak peek into the book. I'll be reading a bit from an essay called The Gospel According to Mean Girls. As that might suggest, I grew up Catholic and also obsessed with Mean Girls, which I'm pretty sure is all the context you need to really know where I'm coming from in this. So without further ado, here is kind of a condensed version of The Gospel According to Mean Girls. All right. I saw Mean Girls in a packed movie theater. My friend Nora and I went to the Biograph on Lincoln Avenue, back when the Biograph still screened movies. We walked back to my house, cackling and quoting the plastics, and immediately watched Lindsay Lohan host Saturday Night Live. That episode, the May 1st, 2004 episode, was best known for the inaugural Debbie Downer sketch, though I best recall the sketch where Lohan plays Hermione Granger with gigantic boobs. So that's on me. As Nora and I shrieked with laughter in my basement, I knew I'd fallen in love with Mean Girls, and perhaps with Lindsay Lohan too. I liked the cadence of the jokes in Mean Girls, the surprising lyricality of the phrase, heavy flow in a wide-set vagina, the way that as Karen Smith yearns to mac on her cousin, Seth Mosikowski rolls off her tongue, the uniquely high school catchiness of the words, the projection room above the auditorium. It has a unique tempo, marked by a tender heart interwoven with gentle digs at the genre. When I watch Mean Girls now, it's like revisiting an old album I've worn to death, scratches be damned. The humor sounds like music to me. Mean Girls made me feel seen and my insecurities understood. In the content, yes, but mostly in Faye's writing, which treated teenagers how they really are, smarter than they look. Mean Girls doesn't talk down to kids, neither in how it treats teenage girls, teenage girl drama, as genuinely hurtful and lasting, nor in its jokes. It hit me right at the perfect age, 14. So here's a little graph of the way that I understood jokes and the way that jokes made me feel good about myself. I'd had enough health class to know that chlamydia doesn't start with a K, but lacked the life experience to have any idea what, for example, butter your muffin means. I was familiar with the cringy trope of cool moms, yeah, sure, but I had to laugh along with what are marijuana pills to not look like I was a total idiot. The jokes felt a step out of my age bracket, and I loved that challenge. Nothing makes a joke funnier than getting it, despite it being intended for someone smarter than you, nor more satisfying than that smugness. It was the humor, more than the story itself, that made Mean Girls feel so personal to me. Now, in 2007, well, Lindsay Lohan began her famous, will they, won't they dance with rehab. I was taking my junior year Catholic ethics class with my religion teacher named Mr. Baird. Mr. Baird was a Texan Marine turned high school religion teacher, this broad shouldered kind of action figure of a man. In class, he was abundant with energy, nimble even, which I guessed was a holdover from his morning commute up Lakeshore Drive on his recumbent bike. He was a passionate educator who firmly believed in the hard acidness of as a means of teaching hard lessons. Mr. Baird delighted in rules and was ruthless in giving detention. I had to wear socks with my heinous Birkenstock clogs every single day of junior year. And so here's a slide just for a visual of what that would look like every day. Think of that together. Okay. Now, despite the demons that the veteran undoubtedly wrestled on those low to the ground bike rides, he was warm and funny and alluring and spoke with such passion on just about every subject that his words always wiggled into my brain and nestled into its folds. Mr. Baird's Catholic ethics class was my first introduction to philosophy of any kind. Catholic dogma is more based in philosophy than it is on the Bible. So Mr. Baird relished Catholic thinkers' place in the larger tradition of Western philosophy. And in order to completely understand contemporary Catholic teaching, he insisted we needed to read Catholic philosophers like St. Augustine and Thomas Aquinas and C.S. Lewis. And understanding those thinkers required some kind of understanding of Plato and Aristotle and Socrates, and even Kant and Freud and Marx. It was actually really adult material for a high school class. And so similar to my understanding of Mean Girls jokes, the harder or more adult the class content was, the better it made me feel about myself. I felt challenged. We had pop quizzes and on our dense reading assignments, pretty much every day of the week. So I guess they weren't pop at that point if you know they're coming. But his class was hard, and he expected us to rise to the text. Like Tina Fey, he treated our minds as adult ones, and I really liked that. If you had asked me at my baccalaureate mass, I'd tell you that I'd learned more from his class than any other class in high school. Now, despite my sheer number of viewings of the movie, only as an adult did I register that Mean Girls' most brutal insult is actually a homophobic one. It's just Janice Ian, Dyke. It's written in the burn book and photocopied for the whole world to see. Now, the most offensive thing here in the world of Mean Girls isn't that the plastics use a gay slur and that that's messed up. The mean thing the plastics do is call Janice a lesbian. It's more than that, though. In 8th grade, Regina started a rumor that Janice was gay, which ostracized Janice at school and prompted the end of their friendship. I couldn't invite her to a pool party. There were going to be girls there in their bathing suits, Regina says. Please forgive my Rachel McAdams impression, explaining the roots of their years-old feud. I mean, right? She was a lesbian. It's posited as a reasonable prompt for Janice's unbridled hatred of Regina, and it's even perceived as degrading to too gay to function Damien. In Mean Girls, calling someone a lesbian is treated as an insult unto itself. It's the worst version of Grotsky little biatch, which is another phrase they use in the movie. It's simply an insult, a bad insult, an insult cruel enough to tear up a friendship, to incite a year-long revenge plot, and a burning urge to destroy the girl who made that claim. Okay, now this is really important for context. The number of times I actually watched Mean Girls as a teenager versus the gay people that I actually, or gay adults or role models that I encountered in my real life. Now, no one likes to be misrepresented, sure. But the fact that being called a lesbian is an insult is, well, pretty insulting to lesbians, right? One could argue that the movie isn't trying to be homophobic, that Regina's the homophobic one, that the writing mimics the casual homophobia teens used in the mid-aughts. And yeah, sure, it would be totally real for self-conscious teen girls to revolt at being called a lesbian. I mean, I know that I did. And all of that might be true. But the writing certainly doesn't stick up for queer women either. Despite Janice wearing a purple tuxedo to Spring Fling, Faye is sure to disprove Regina's allegation in the final scene as Janice makes out with Kevin G in pure blissed out heterosexuality. After, upwards of 75 viewings of Mean Girls in 2004, I internalized this idea that like Regina argued, lesbians shouldn't be allowed to go to pool parties with straight girls. I worshipped the movie, and Faye too. And so a subtle but disappointed narrative settled into the corners of my brain for years after 2004. It's cool for guys to be gay. It's cool for girls to be friends with gay guys, but you definitely don't want to be a lesbian. Now, our final project for Mr. Baird's Catholic ethics class was a group project, the most cursed of all projects, as we all know. Each group was given a hot button ethical dilemma of 2007. So gird your loins. Those problems were, some of them are still, hot topics today, but it was abortion, gay marriage, immigration, euthanasia, and the war in Iraq. Each group had to present on what all the writers and thinkers we read would say on the issue today, if they were alive, and make a determination of whether they would be pro or against overall on the issue. Then Mr. Baird, of course, would dress down each group in class, poke holes in our arguments, and bend philosophy in the direction of his own conservative Texan worldview without once using the word conservative like magic. So here's an example of a breakdown of Mr. Baird's grading process. Clearly, I'm very, very over the grade that I got on this particular assignment, and I'm not hung up with my high school grades at all. No, I'm totally over it. My group did the death penalty. We were nay on the death penalty based on the sanctity of human life, which is the same tenet that Catholics use to reject abortion. But per Mr. Baird, we were wrong. But abortion is still a terrible sin. So I don't know what I learned in this project. Naturally, I remember no presentations other than mine and the gay marriage group. They too were a group comprised of liberal Chicago Catholics and had gone pro on gay marriage. We may not have been open-minded enough to actively embrace and support our own queerness, but damn it, we liked the idea of sounding open-minded. Anyway, Mr. Baird, of course, was thrilled to announce that they too were wrong. His explanation: homosexuality is like alcoholism, he told us. He explained, a person is genetically predisposed toward substance abuse, but one can resist the impulse to drink. Similarly, one might feel the urge to, kiss people of the same gender, apparently conceding that homosexuality isn't a choice, so I guess there's that. But that we should shove it away and resist it in order to inch nearer to some kind of existential truth and happiness. Never mind that alcoholism, when unmanaged, can be a life-ruining disease. In that moment in class, I knew Mr. Baird was wrong. I didn't process his comments as harmful to me personally. I hadn't yet allowed myself to grapple with my own sexuality. I was just entering the phase of closetedness where I simply fancied myself, a great ally. Maybe a part of me knew that I would fall for my friend Claire in the coming months. But no, I was just fired up about gay stuff because I loved justice not because of my own, St. Augustine-esque illicit fantasies. But Mr. Baird was a very good teacher. He was funny and charming and passionate. And that idea that being queer was something worth resisting, well, it stuck with me. Okay, now, why am I talking about Mean Girls and my junior year religion teacher who rode a recumbent bike to school every day? In the scheme of things, my relationship with Mr. Baird wasn't too dramatic or that out of the ordinary. When I came out of the closet eventually in college, my parents didn't, send me to conversion therapy or kick me out of the house. But it's really easy to brush off homophobia when it comes from someone outwardly hateful or someone with an extreme agenda. But it's so much more confusing and honestly poisonous when it comes from someone that you trust, someone you admire, like, my religion teacher or like Tina Fey. It affirmed my instincts to repress my sexuality, at least for a few more years. Now, I wasn't as hype on Mr. Baird's Catholic ethics class as I had been on Mean Girls, honestly, but just as the phrase Janice Ian Dyke seeped into my brain and by embedding itself into a piece of art that I loved so much, the phrase homosexuality is like alcoholism crept its way in under the guise of Catholic logic from a trusted teacher. Now, as we can see, both Mean Girls and Catholic School were presumably created with the sole intent of making me feel bad. Okay, no, I'm kidding. Kind of. But I'd be dishonest if I blamed my Catholic upbringing for the brunt of my internalized homophobia or, my instinct to stay in the closet, which might just be Catholic Stockholm Syndrome. There's no winning. I will never know. And sure, this Napoleonic ex-Marine shrieked ancient texts condemning lust at me for a swath of my pubescence. But I also had my very favorite soul-affirming movie tell me that if I were gay, none of my girlfriends would want to be around me while in bathing suits, and that their discomfort was reasonable and valid. And those conclusions surely informed my latent understanding that queerness and public meltdown go hand in hand. It's easy to blame organized religion for, all of our sex hangups. And it's usually warranted, at least in part. But I think singling out my Catholic ethics class or all of those all-school masses or my Sunday school classes as the places where I inherited negative ideas about queerness lets the secular world of the 2000s off way too easy. All right. So that is a version of The Gospel According to Mean Girls, which is in my book, The 2000s Made Me Gay. It comes out on Tuesday, and I'm super excited to share it with the world. So you can pre-order it from your local independent bookseller. And that's it. Thanks so much for having me. It was such an honor to be here, and I hope you guys have an awesome rest of your day learning from this incredible lineup of speakers. Thanks, guys.